We got Shayne Graham in studio. I wanted to talk to you about this kicker from Dallas, this Brandon Aubrey. You could say he's top 3 kickers in the league easily.
Easily, yeah.
And I know his agent. This guy, he's something else. He just comes out and he has no filter, and he's like, I want to get my client $10 million. And I know the first offer was 6.4, which would make him the highest paid kicker in the league. And he didn't even blink. He's like, nope, 10 million.
Well, and it's such a tough call because when is enough? You know, I mean, it's all a lot of money, but you look at what he's done as a very minimum salary guy his first 3 years. I mean, minimum salary is still a lot of money.
Yep.
To most people. You know, a few $100,000 versus $1 million or a few million is quite a difference now. But he performed as an all-pro kicker all 3 years of his career. And I think he set a record for most 60-yarders in a season, most 60-yarders in a career, like all of that within 3 years. So he's obviously done well above the standard benchmark for kickers.
And he's such a weapon. I mean, with these new kickoff rules, a touchback, you're starting at, 25 or 30?
It might even be the 30 or 35
so
now.
So you're talking 15, 20 yards, 25 yards on a drive. You're in his range already.
Yeah. And he's hitting 60-yarders on fourth down. Not the end of the half, not the end of the game, like Hail Mary type deals, but like, it's fourth down. Let's have a 60-yarder. Or a 58 or a 59 and multiple in a game. To come away with points instead of a field position loss in those situations is huge, especially when I think the average point differential is like 3-point change of all NFL games on average. When you're turning potential punts into points, that's a big thing, and that gives you a lot of yards in the hidden yardage equation as well, because you're not giving up those yards. Even if you're pinning a team deep with your punting, you're putting points on the board, and you have a chance to try to pin them on the kickoff as well. So I think that plays out quite a bit. But he's doing something that guys just haven't done. You've got guys that can do it from time to time, but he does it every game. I mean, you almost expect, if you're watching Red Zone, you almost expect Dallas to pop up and you hear that guy. I can't remember his name, the guy that doesn't even take pee breaks all day long.
I can't think of his name either.
Ryan Hansen or Brian Hansen or something like that. You almost expect to hear that guy's voice say, Brandon Aubrey with another 60-yarder, Brandon Aubrey with a 58-yarder. Like, it's almost like the whole day you're hearing that when Dallas is playing. And guy like Janikowski, who was like known as like one of the biggest leg guys during my career, he never did that. I mean, I think he might have hit some upper 50s, maybe even hit a 60 or more during his career. But when guys hit 60-yarders back then, it was like a cause for like crazy celebration. Now it's like, it's Sunday, we're going to get a 60-yarder by somebody.
And it was the wind at his back, and all that.
And Brandon's doing it with no wind in a dome. Now that also helps not control the shortness of the ball, but it's impressive. And what he's done, I think he deserves to be the highest paid guy. I'm not the right person to figure out the math on the equation of what's fair and how do you leave enough for the rest of the team to build and have strength with the salary cap. There's people that get paid a lot more money to figure that stuff out. But also those are the same people that the owner has to go to, and the owner may have his own opinions on certain things. And I can tell you, Jerry Jones has had a reputation over the years as always wanting to get a young guy, develop them, then let their value, come back to them by sending them somewhere else. Right. And that's kind of been his thing. I think the 2 times he's actually paid a kicker, he paid Mike Vanderjagt in the maybe 2006, 2007, 2008. I can't remember exactly what year this happened. And it didn't pan out. And then they paid Dan Bailey, which I think did pan out. I think Dan Bailey did a great job for them there, but they're just not known for throwing monies at kickers. It's, it's a quarterback. It's another guy. It's not going to be a kicker. So I don't know if if he reaches. I know they put a tender out there, so a team maybe gets a second round and a sixth round if they take him and sign him to a restricted free agent contract. But I think a team may do that. I don't know.
Can you franchise tag a kicker?
I was franchised.
Were you really?
I was franchise tagged, yeah. Yep. So they can do that. I just don't see them doing it because they're going to have to give him a guaranteed, six, 7
He's got to be in the top, 10% of what the kickers make?
I think he's the average of the top 3 is how they do it. And then, but it's guaranteed. If he just absolutely pukes the bed, he still gets his money, even if they cut him week 1. But I think in that situation, what happens is you try to figure out the cost analysis of what that does. What is the value? And then if another team offers that kind of contract, you're going to have to match it or you're going to look like an idiot.
Yeah.
So I guess they're just hoping that tender of that second round tender will deter a team from making a bigger offer than they're willing to do. But you never know. There might be a team that said, hey, we've had enough of this. We want this weapon. We're going to pay for it. And then that's going to force Dallas to match it. And then it's just like, well, why didn't you just offer that in the first place? Now, if they're truly saying $10 million or bust, who knows? Because if you don't get that, you still have to play another year. Like he can't leave. He's still locked in for a restricted free agent year under a tender contract. So he still has to play. So then it's a matter of how much is it worth to you when that year's up and you're unrestricted and teams can offer you whatever they want with no compensation. When that happens, then it becomes, okay, is it worth it to move and go somewhere else and make more money, or is it worth it to stay and not have to deal with that? And I can tell you he's probably in his low 30s now.
Is he 30 years old?
I think he was a little older when he got started because he had a professional soccer career before he got into football. But at that point in your life, I think you're looking for a little stability. And I can tell you that was one of the hardest things for me in my career at the end of it, especially was every year I was packing a suitcase and moving into a new apartment or living in a hotel, extended stay or something, and not having that security is tough. And even as a coach, when, every 2 years I felt like I was moving, it's one of the reasons I got out of it. It was too much on me and my wife to just say like, hey, where are we going to live every 2 years? Who knows?
Especially
Let's rent.
Raising kids as well.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine.
Absolutely.
He'll be 31 on Saturday.
Okay, so he is 30 already, and I'm assuming he's already got a family started.
That I didn't Google.
Yeah,
I just got his age here, but he's built like a truck.
Yeah,
and it looks so effortless. I think you almost have to change the name of the red zone. Yeah, really. Because it's not the red zone anymore. The red zone for him is the opponent's 45-yard line.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, you can say that the balls are a little doctored this year and all that, but you still got to put it through the goalpost. You still got to strike it perfect. And other guys aren't doing it at the same click. You've got guys doing it. I mean, you got Cam Little hitting 67-yarders and 70-yarders in the preseason. You're seeing guys do things that guys haven't been doing. But he's really just done it at such a high click that it's like
so consistent.
The guy has got to be valued somehow.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you about some of the kickers that are coming up in this year's draft. So let's take a short break and we'll come back and talk about that and wrap things up. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points with Ryan Walsh, presented by Encore Business Group on Jethro FM. Familiar with some of these guys that are coming out in the NFL draft, kickers. When is it? I mean, we've seen, I think the highest a kicker's been drafted is round 3. And that was just a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Well, we had Evan McPherson was taken in the 5th, but the year after that, or maybe the year after that, Jake Moody was taken in the 3rd. Now, a few years ago, we had the kid from Florida State, and I'm blanking on his name, Aguayo. He was put into a really tough situation. Tampa traded up and picked him in the second round.
Wow.
Which meant those fans were bitter that they could have got somebody else in the second round and traded up for a kicker. So you can imagine the expectations on that guy's shoulders.
I cannot imagine.
And you know what? I predicted that he would struggle because of the mental side of he was an All-American at Florida State, broke all these records for consistency, and everyone loved him and loved him and loved him and patted him on his back. It's all he ever felt. He had never felt the ire of a fanfare that was against you from day one and said, if you miss one, we're going to jump you. And that's what he had to deal with. So that didn't work out. I think Ohio State kicker kicked for the Bengals for a long. Why am I blanking? Oh my goodness. Anyway, second round. This was probably 2004, 2005, 6 maybe. Taken in the second round, didn't really stick where he originally went. I think it was the Jets maybe, and then he ended up having a really good career in Cincinnati. I feel really bad because he's a friend of mine, and I'm literally brain farting on his name right now. I feel so bad. Anyway, Mike Nugent. Oh my goodness, Mike Nugent from Ohio State.
Yeah, sure.
High draft pick. Just didn't work out with the Jets, but then had a great career.
Who does work with the Jets?
But then had a great career with the Bengals and had a nice long career. But I think Sebastian Janikowski in 2000 was a first round draft pick with the 17th pick, and I think that's the highest we've had in forever, if not ever. And
yeah, I just don't remember that, but
I think it's tough to take a kicker that high when you can get them later. I think the only time you're really going to see a team take guys like that early is if they have multiple picks in the barrel, extra picks. I think Baltimore took Jordan Stout as a punter in the 4th round, which I think they beat out Cincinnati because I think Cincinnati may have wanted him. But they beat them because they had multiple extra picks in the same round. So they went ahead and got their punter and knew that other teams were going to get him early. So they went ahead and pulled the trigger. But for the most part, I mean, Evan McPherson, I think, was the only kicker taken, and he was by far the best guy coming out that year. Very much showed his rookie year it was worth the pick. And he was a 5th rounder. So you can't say that a guy wasn't taken early isn't as good. It's really, what teams have available and what their needs are. You can sometimes, these pre-draft speculation boards. I mean, Mel Kiper had me going in the 5th round, and I didn't even get drafted. So, that was a whole lot of getting my hopes up and for things not to work out the way I wanted. So I've always found that no one's truly ever going to know. But I see Trey Smack being the first guy out of Florida, a kid that grew up in Maryland, really athletic, strong guy. And I think Dominic Zaveda is gonna have a good chance of maybe being the next guy after him. And then as far as punters, I think Tommy Doman and Ryan Eckley are 2 guys that are up there. Ryan Eckley from Michigan State, Tommy Doman formerly from Michigan, but transferred to Florida. I think those guys are going to be on the board. And then there's a few other guys that kind of trickle down that, could be late rounds or free agent guys that sign as a free agent and maybe win the job.
And field goal kickers, I know they were important back when you played, but nowadays it just seems like you've got to have a really good, strong-legged, consistent kicker. And that's really kind of diminished the role of the punter, because punters are now punting less than they ever have, and their role has become more of a 55 to 60% holder and a 40 to 45% punter. And some of those guys kick off as well, but kickoffs are different now. You don't, it's not about who can bang it out of the back of the end zone. It's about who can place it, and that doesn't take as much out of your body. So maybe you've got some older guys that can still pop a field goal pretty far, but they've never been a huge kickoff guy. This would have really helped my career because I was never a huge kickoff guy. If I had been able to do these little placement kicks, probably could have prolonged my career a little bit. But
I think it puts guys in a position where, if you're a punter, you show that you can be consistent, you're going to be a guy that can hold on. And if you're a kicker and you can show that you can be consistent but still have some range and show some mental toughness, that's what they all want to look for. And really, you don't know who has it because you can think by their college career, but you really don't until they get that, hey, if you miss a couple, you're on the street type situation. And that's when you find out where the salt is.
Yeah, I mean, because back in the day, 75, 80%, 80% kicker, you felt pretty comfortable that you'd have a job every year on the same team. And now it's not like that. I mean, you miss 2 or 3 kicks in a row, and I can't imagine you've got to be looking over your shoulder now. It's completely changed. Yeah,
I mean, I remember having maybe an upper 80% season in 2003 in Cincinnati, and that was like the highest percentage that team had ever had for a kicker. And I was upset that I missed the few that I missed, but that percentage was still really good at the time. And now you've got guys that if they're not 90%, the fans are like, why do we still have this bum? And it's just such a high expectation, but it's because we're seeing guys like Brandon Aubrey and Cam Little and some of these guys, banging the long field goals and making most of the short ones, if not all of them, that, the expectations are this little guy who's not as big as everybody else. He's kicking it through the goal. It ain't that hard. If they can do it, everybody can do it. Do your job, blah, 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 stuff I've heard for forever. Everyone just thinks it's easy, but they don't stop to realize the whole first half of this radio show was talking about the mental side of that and how important that is. And those guys have all of that in their favor.
Yeah, and I can't imagine not having that help being a punter now, because before it was hang time and it was net average. And now that doesn't even matter anymore because, like you said, they're not getting the chance to do that. And the coffin corner, you don't see it anymore because now they're bringing out the field goal kicker.
Yeah.
So to have that consistent, putting it in within the 10-yard line or putting it within the 20-yard line, they don't get enough chances to be consistent. How can you imagine trying to do that on a consistent basis when you're not getting the opportunities that you were used to doing? 6-7 punts a game, not anymore. I mean, how many games did we see puntless this past season?
I mean, except for the Super Bowl, I think each team punted. One team punted 7, one team punted 8. But I think when you think about it, when your chances start to diminish, it means that when you do get your chance, you better be on.
Yeah.
And that is why, people, talk about long snappers. No one really knows who the long snapper is until they mess up. And no one really knows the punter unless the punter's, done such a good job that he's made some huge plays that he kind of stands out. The kicker, you're kind of, their name is said every PAT, their name is said, especially on field goals. So you kind of get to know who the kicker is, but those chances are, maybe 1, 2, 3 field goals a game, occasionally a 4 or 5 field goal game. And that really stands out. But the chances are still just so much different than a receiver. That imagine the star receiver only getting 5 targets in a game. He better catch all 5 of those, right?
Right.
And that's how the fans would look at it. But the star receiver might get quite like 10, 15, I don't know how many targets, but they're going to get a lot higher targets. The quarterback's going to get how many chances for a completion rate? They're going to be, 15 of 22, and that's really good, or whatever the standard may be. They're getting multiple chances, so the drop ball or the short or the overthrow kind of can get overlooked. But when your chances are chopped down and you have low chance of repetition, it makes each one of those reps that much more important, almost on that sniper mentality of one shot, one kill type thing.
Can you imagine watching a game with Bill Parcells now? As much as his whole thing was field position and using that punter and pinning that team and making them go 90 yards. Can you imagine Bill Parcells saying, yeah, we're going to send my kicker out for a 60-yarder? I still think if he were in the game today, he wouldn't be doing that.
You never know. I mean, he was, I can tell you this. I'm glad I never played for him because I heard horror stories. I heard about him bringing out like 2 or 3 kickers for a workout one time with a folding chair to watch. The first guy missed, and he snaps the chair closed and gets up and says, I can't believe I wasted my time coming out here. Like, just hearing that story is like, maybe that would have made me tougher to hear that, but also I'm glad I didn't have to hear that.
Right. Yeah, I think about that quite often because what Bill Parcells would say and what he would do or what he would think, because to him, I remember every week it seemed like he talked about field position. He wanted that team to drive 90-plus yards to get points. And nowadays, even if you're pinning them within the 10, 3 first downs, they're in field goal range. So that's why he's not in the game, right?
Yeah. Well,
not only just his age, but probably
and
that mindset.
Belichick was kind of broken from his mold, and then you hear about the Belichick tree and all the Saban came from the Belichick tree, and all these other coaches that they all kind of had that same mentality that they really respected and used special teams as a very strong point. I mean, Belichick drafted a guy purely because he had 25 tackles as a senior on special teams. And that guy made 28 to 32 million. I can't remember if it was 28 to 30 or something, purely as a special teams guy. Matt Slater.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Was a receiver.
Yep.
I think he got 6 yards, one reception for 6 yards in his whole NFL career. But he was a guy that was there to make tackles and protection and be smart and lead the special teams, and made a ton of money doing it because Belichick understood the priority of that. And I think a lot of these coaches all get that, but with the rule changes, you've got to have a good specialist to be able to do it.
What do you think of these new changes with the kickoff and everything?
I mean, it's
aesthetically, it's ugly, but
it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I get it because you're trying to cut down the full-speed collisions, and because even when guys get tackled and hit the hole on line of scrimmage plays, you've only got a 4-yard run up before a running back hits a linebacker or a D lineman or whatever, and that's a thud. I mean, I've the loudest thud I ever heard was Reuben Drone's helmet to helmet with I'm blanking on his name, defensive end out of Georgia that broke his neck, and he did TV. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. Also another friend of mine, and I am brain farting, but broke his neck because of a 4-yard run up in that play. So what they try to do now is take that huge run down the field out of play so that guys are literally starting 5 yards apart, and it's just a little bit of like shoulder pad to shoulder pad, hand to hand type combat versus a joust, right, is what it used to kind of look like.
Yep.
And when you do that, you're taking away a lot of the element of surprise and a good returner who can see a hole open up and hit the hole, whereas now he's just got a bunch of slow-moving stuff in front of him, and it's an advantage on the coverage team because they can react to him a little faster without having to slow down and all of that they were doing before. But you're also losing the aspect of having more returns that break for longer yards that the fans want to see.